Welcome to Torah Today Ministries and our continuing series, The Hebrew Key, where we take some complex idea or problem in Scripture and we find the Hebrew word or phrase or idiom that unlocks it and helps it to make sense to us. And one of these issues that's often been confusing to people is God a jealous God? Is he really jealous? I mean, after all, we tend to think of jealousy as being a very negative character trait, and yet throughout the Scriptures, God is called a jealous God. How do we reconcile this? And you may know as well that this word that's translated jealous is also the word that is translated zealous. Jealousy and zeal share the same Hebrew word. So how do we reconcile it? What do we do with this? Well, let's take a look at the word that is at the root of the issue. And here we see the Hebrew verb kana. Kof nun aleph, kana. And sometimes it is translated to be zealous, sometimes to be jealous. Now, again, try to think, how does zeal and jealousy correspond to one another? And just working with English definitions and connotations makes it almost impossible to fit these two together. So what we're going to have to do as we look at the word kana, we're going to have to temper our idea of what zeal is and what jealousy is, because we're going to find that kana is something that lands somewhere in between the two. And we have to temper our definitions of these, and then they will blend together. So just stick with me, and you'll see what I mean. But let's take some examples of how this word is translated zealous and also translated jealous. The first one is in Psalm 69:9, where it says, "For zeal for your house," that would be the temple, "has consumed me, and the reproaches of those who reproach you have fallen on me." This, of course, is a prophecy of the Messiah. And in John's Gospel, chapter 2, verse 17, when Yeshua drove the money changers out of the temple, John quotes this passage. This is how it reads in John 2:17. "His disciples remembered that it was written, quote, 'Zeal for your house will consume me,' unquote." So here we see the word zeal translating the Hebrew word kana. But in Genesis chapter 30, verse 1, it says, "When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she became jealous of her sister." Same word, kana. So it's obvious that we can't translate zeal in the first verse as jealousy, and we can't translate the word jealous in the second verse as zealous. It just doesn't work. These are translated appropriately, yet they both come from the same Hebrew word kana. Now, sometimes it's not obvious which way to translate the word kana. Here's one of them. It comes from this week's Torah portion, in fact, and that's what gave me the idea to do a teaching on this word kana. Because as I record this, it's the first week of July, and the Torah portion is Pinchas, or Phineas. And Phineas was a person who was very zealous for God, or jealous for God. Depends on how you want to translate the word. The English Standard Version translates these verses, Numbers 25, verses 11 to 13, in this way. "Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel in my jealousy." Other translations will have that he was zealous with my zeal, and that I did not consume the people of Israel in my zeal. And then the word is used a fourth time down here in verse 13. So, which is the right way to translate this? Can we even know the right way to translate this? Well, I wish we had an exact English word that captures the essence of the word kana. But here's the thing to remember. When you read the word kana, which we translate jealous or zealous, it has to do with the emotion that surrounds ownership. Better yet, it describes the attachment between an owner and what is owned. It describes that attachment between an owner and what is owned. A homophone of the word kana, which is also pronounced kana, which is what makes it a homophone, two words that sound alike, is the word kana spelled kof nun he. The last letter is different, which means to purchase or legally acquire. So if you purchase something at the store or you inherit something, you have kanad that thing, kana with a he. This word is first found in Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. Now Adam knew his wife, Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I've kanad a man with the help of Adonai. So since she acquired a man with the help of Adonai, she named him Cain after the word kana. So let's put all these together, because at this point I can almost feel you becoming confused. So here we see the verb kana with an aleph, which means to be jealous or zealous. At least that's how it's translated, one of those two ways. Here's kana with a he, which means to purchase or acquire. But what's really interesting is when you combine these last two letters, the aleph and the he, you get the word kina, kof nun aleph he, which is the noun for zeal or jealousy. So the noun of the word kana, to be jealous or to be zealous, is hearkening back to this word to purchase, to own. Excuse me. So again, we see that this word kana has to do with the relationship between an owner and what is owned. Now, let's take an example here, an analogy. Let's say you had to run into the store. You're a husband, and you left your wife in the car in the parking lot. You go into the store to pick up whatever it is you're getting. You come back out of the store, and when you see your car in the parking lot, you see your wife in the car, you see a man trying to pick the lock to get into your car. Now, the scriptures will use the word kana to describe this man's emotions and your emotions as well, because kana has to do with the relationship between an owner and what is owned. So the feeling you have about your wife and your car and the things in your car is kana as zeal, because you own that car. That wife is your wife. That man has no business coming near your possession, and more importantly, your own wife. So you feel this feeling of anger. That is mine. She is my wife. Get away from her. And so that's kana. And so when you go back to the passage in Numbers, when it describes Phinehas' jealousy for God, because God is jealous and he was jealous for me, you can understand a little bit why this word is used that way, because God's people are God's people. And they'd begun to worship idols and involve themselves in very immoral behavior. And Phinehas took action because he recognized God as the owner of his people, the one who loves his people. They are his. And Phinehas acted on behalf of God because he recognized proper ownership. But now let's go back to the parking lot example. That thief, the feeling he has, the drive he has, is also described with the same Hebrew word, the word kana. It's not that he owns the car or that he's married to the woman in it, but he wants ownership. of the car and or its contents, including your wife. And that action he's taking based on his desire for ownership, that's also called kana. So we see kana can have a very positive foundation. It can have also a very negative foundation. You can be the feelings you have as the owner, or the craving you have to be the owner. You might be saying, well, what's the difference between this and covetousness? Well, we're commanded not to covet. It is, after all, one of the 10 commandments. But to covet is strictly desire. But when you take actions upon that desire, based on that desire, you begin to act, then you've moved from covetousness to kana. You're trying to change the order and relationship of things to where you become the owner. Now, in Rachel's case, her action was simply to really get angry and frustrated and chew out her husband Jacob. Give me children or I'll die. And that was an inappropriate way to approach this. It wasn't Jacob's fault that she could not have children. But she took action. In her case, action was simply the speech. And so it was an inappropriate action. You know, I was discussing this with Robin yesterday, and she says, well, I don't like the wife analogy because it sounds like the man owns the wife. And I thought for a moment, and I thought she's right, but then I thought of the passage in Song of Solomon. Ani ladodi vadodi li. I am my beloved's, and he is mine. And in a loving marriage relationship, the wife belongs to the husband. The husband belongs to the wife. And they both experience kana, zeal, to protect that relationship between the owner and the owned. Both of them are property to the other. Both of them are owners of the other. And it's a beautiful thing if it's kept healthy and alive and strong. So with that in mind, let's take a verse. Oh, well, let's look at this. The two sides of kana. A positive side is zeal, to protect what I rightfully own. That's to recognize that proper relationship I have with what I have legally acquired. But it's jealousy, which is the desire to own something that belongs to another, to take action upon that. But in both cases, we have the word own involved. Now, let's look at this verse. Exodus 34:14. For you shall worship no other God, for Adonai, jealous is his name. He is a jealous God. Here it is in Hebrew. Ki Adonai, Kana Shemo. Kana is his name. El Kana, a jealous God, is who means he. Ki Adonai Kana Shemo, El Kanahu. He is a jealous God, an El Kana. So, how do we translate this word jealous? It's not the jealousy of one young girl who's jealous of another young girl's looks, or a guy who's jealous of another guy's athletic ability. It's simply God is jealous because he knows what is his. We are not our own. We've been bought with a price. God's people were his people. They were in a covenant relationship together, like a husband and wife. And they are being lured away purposefully by idolatry and by wickedness. And he had this emotion arise in him, both of desire for what is his and anger against the one who's intruding into this relationship he has with his redeemed covenant people. So hopefully, in this mess of explanation and Hebrew words and English words, something begins to arise, an image in your mind of what kana is. And if we can begin to visualize in our minds what kana is, we see that jealousy and zeal, though each one captures a part of what the word means, they both fall a little bit short. But we have to take the two of them together, temper them a bit, sand off the rough edges, and when we do, we come up with a somewhat of an accurate idea of what kana means in Scripture. So is God a jealous God? Yes, but in a very good way. Is he a zealous God? Yes. He loves us with a passion, and he wants to protect and take care of what he owns, what he's purchased, because he loves it so very, very much. So hopefully this will be helpful to you as you encounter these difficult concepts that arise in our translations of the Hebrew Scriptures. So, till next time, I wish you shalom, and may God bless.
Thank you for joining us for today's teaching. If the work of Torah Today Ministries has touched your life, please consider making a donation or sponsoring an upcoming video. As a video sponsor, you'll have an exclusive opportunity to memorialize a family member, celebrate a special event, or simply support the ongoing creation of similar content. Your tax-deductible contribution helps ensure that our teachings continue to reach all who are longing for truth. Click the link or visit our website to learn more.
That's all, folks.